Today on Commander Replay, we're back with some more Goreclaw Wurm Tribal against Nekusar, Teysa Karlov, and Lavinia. Find out who gets turned into worm food and who doesn't, next on Commander Replay. Thank you to all of my awesome Patreon supporters. We have one new Patreon supporter, Tyrant of Ruin. Tyrant, you are awesome. If you want to help support the channel and vote on which decks I play next, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below. Welcome back, everyone. Playing some Goreclaw Wurm Tribal today. Take a look at our opening hand. We've got 2 lands, plus a Sylvan Library. I think that's going to work. And we've got 1 worm in our hand. Yeah, I think this looks good. So we'll keep this one. And the reason I'm playing this deck today is because my paper version of Goreclaw needs a little bit of work. So I wanted to go back and play it online, get a little testing in, kind of get a feel for what's going on, and see if I can update my paper list accordingly. So it's going to be our turn 1. We draw into another worm. Was kind of looking for a land right there, but what can you do? So we'll drop down the forest and pass the turn. There's a Phyrexian Reclamation for the Teysa Karlov opponent. Lavinia, Azorius Renegade coming into play for Dave. He did mull to 5, by the way. It's pretty low. It's not the best. And that's going to bring it back to our turn. We draw another worm. Worms are good. We do need to find some lands, though. So get the Reliquary Tower down, play the Sylvan Library, and hopefully there's some lands on top of our deck. So today I'm joined by 3 Patreon supporters. First up, we have Chaotix2075 piloting this Nekusar the Mindrazor deck. Nekusar, very popular commander, can be very powerful, but at the very least, we'll probably get to look at some extra cards throughout the game, just that may kill us also. So we'll probably want to be careful with the Sylvan Library now that I'm thinking about it. Next up, we have Archangel227 playing Teysa Karlov, probably looking at the typical Aristocrats Death Harmonicon style of deck. And then finally, we have Dave piloting Lavinia, Azorius Renegade, and he got caught on the mull to 5 this game. And he's going to swing into us for 2. So that's going to bring it back to our turn. There's a Strip Mine on top, and take a look with the Sylvan Library. A bunch of lands. Lands are good. Goreclaw is a single green, so I'm going to put the Tranquil Thicket back on top, and I'm going to keep the Myriad Landscape. I'm going to play the Myriad Landscape. I'm not too worried about the Urza's Incubator just yet, and we will pass the turn like that. Actually, next turn we could, depending if we have more lands on top of our deck, next turn we could potentially go Oracle of Moldiah instead, and that might be the way to go. There's a Chromatic Lantern for the Nekusar. Chromatic Lantern, a little bit awkward with Lavinia in play. Opponent will have to manage their casting costs. Teysa Karlov coming into play, sure. And last turn, the Teysa Karlov opponent did lay down a Midnight Reaper. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, deals 1 damage to you and you draw a card. Midnight Reaper going on the attack into the Nekusar. Sounds good. Here comes a Frantic Search from the Lavinia. Yep. Should help them a little bit with their mulligan. Still down on cards, but at least they can set up some of the things that they need, get rid of some things that they may not. Gets rid of Pact Negation and Mox Diamond. Yep. Gonna lay down an Expedition map, sure. Holds up just enough mana to be a counterspell. Awesome. Gonna swing into us for 2. Yep. Going on the Lavinia beats. It's gonna bring it back to our turn. Sylvan Library will trigger. Bunch of lands on top of our deck. I'm gonna put everything back. I'm not gonna pay the life right here, so put everything back on top. I'm gonna try the Oracle of Moldiah. It may get countered, and that would make me very, very sad, but I think we gotta try. Nope, it got through. Yeah. All right, play the Forest. Play the Tranquil Thicket. Oh, that's all of our lands. That is all the land drops we get. Sad face. So I guess we pass turn like that. Here comes a Sison Perverter of Truth. That'll be fun. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses 2 life and draws 2 cards. If we can get Oracle to stick around, that'll be really helpful because of all the extra lands we'll be drawing. So Teysa's turn, and Sison will trigger. Teysa Karlov going to swing into us. Yep. And send the Midnight Reaper into us, so I think everyone getting a little nervous about Oracle of Moldiah and lots of lands. In my experience with this deck so far, it is not the kind of deck that can really play Arch Enemy and come out the victor on the other side. There are some decks that can do that, and I don't think this is one of them. So we're probably going to want to look to get some creatures into play this turn. Lavinia's going to Rapid Hybridize our Oracle of Moldiah. That makes me sad. Lavinia going to go Swords to Plowshares on the Sison. Oh man, I was looking for the extra cards right there. Well, that makes me sad. And gonna Gitaxian Probe us. We'll probably get a good chuckle when he sees its Worm Tribal. Lavinia gonna swing into the Nekusar opponent, sure. And that's gonna bring it back to our turn. Sylvan Library will trigger. Take a look with the library. There's a Triumph of the Hordes. Glad he didn't see that. That would probably change the equation just a little bit. I'm going to put the Tranquil Thicket back on top and put the Cow Prowler. Actually, do we want the Cow Prowler? Yeah, I think we can put that back on top too. Play the Strip Mine. Maybe we should have kept it. Crap. Actually, no. We can crack our Myriad Landscape. That would be fine. Okay, yeah. So we'll crack the Myriad Landscape. Hope Dave doesn't lay down an Armageddon, because that would be super annoying. Get the lands into play. Can't cast the Panglacial Wurm just yet. And we'll go for the Urza's Incubator right here. And next turn should be slam down a bunch of worms. Choose worms, and we going on the attack? I think I'm going to stay put with my token. We've been taking some hits, so yeah. Liliana's Caress coming down for the Nekusar. That's a good one. Wheel and deal. Any number of target opponents each discard their hands, then draw 7 cards. Ugh. Knew I should have kept the Triumph on top. Well, I guess we shuffled anyway, but... opponent's going to Anguish Unmaking on the Liliana's Caress. That seems like a fine plan. We'll get a fresh 7, but the 5 cards in hand are all pretty good, so I'm sad to be losing those. What do we get? We get officially no worms, which is kind of an issue. We do have a Sylvan Library, as long as that sticks around. We have a Mana Crypt, get some more ramp on. Ronas Monument is interesting. Crush of Worms gets us worms, but does not get the cost reduction, which is a little bit frustrating. I was hoping to get the Palaka Wurm down also, just to get the 7 life back, because that would be nice. But doesn't look like that's going to be. Magus of the Tabernacle. Glad that one got wheeled away. Wrath of God, Whelming Wave. All right, yeah, got through all that stuff. That's good. Soul Ring coming down for the Teysa. And a Crypt Gas coming down. Yep. There is an Urborg in play. And Nekusar laid down a Cabal Coffers last turn with the Urborg down. They'll be getting some extra mana. And, ooh, an Archon of Justice. Yep, that one's scary, especially with Teysa Karlov in play. Opponent going to swing into the Nekusar opponent. Sure. Nekusar down to 35. Mystical Tutor for the Lavinia opponent. Let's see what they're going to get. It's going to be a Time Twister, so potentially not in love with their hand. Lays down a Mystic Remora. Ugh. And going to lay down a Time Twister, so looks like we're not keeping this hand. So that does reshuffle our graveyard, which is pretty good, I think. We draw a World Spine Worm, but that one is really expensive. We draw into, like, not as many worms as I would have hoped right here, but we still got some things to do. Might go for Panglacial Wurm this turn, we'll see. So it's going to bring it back to our turn. Sylvan Library is going to trigger. There's a Kodama's Reach. Kodama's Reach, Yavimaya Wurm, and a Forest. The Forest can definitely go back on top. Do we need the Yavimaya Wurm? I'm going to keep that one around, simply because we don't have any low-cost worms in our hand. So it'd be 4 to get that down. We'll have 8 mana when we play a land this turn. Let's get the Scavenger Grounds down. Ugh, Mystic Remora is still in play. Maybe we'll go with the creatures this turn instead of the... What's that? That's 11. Got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. So I think we're going to go Goreclaw. Get Goreclaw in. And that'll make this Yavimaya Wurm 2 mana, which is pretty cool. That'll also make the Surrak 2 mana. So we could either go Nylea or Surrak. This already has Trample on its own, so I guess we'll go Yavimaya, and then we'll get the Surrak down. Now we can give a creature we control haste. What do we give in haste? Do we attack with Goreclaw, or do we attack with the Yavimaya Wurm? Guess we'll put it on +1 more is 6. I guess it doesn't matter, so we'll put it on the Worm. We'll send that over there and send that over there. I'm gonna do that the other way. We'll go 3 damage into the Nekusar and 6 into the Lavinia. So they both go to 30, and Teysa Karlov still at 37. We're down to 22. Wouldn't mind seeing some of those life gain worms. If we don't get wheeled or blown up this turn, which, given the commanders at the table, high likelihood of both happening, we can get this Pathbreaker Ibex down and just swing for a ton of trample with haste. So there's a Nekusar. The card draw is about to start hurting real bad. And there's a Fevered Visions that will trigger the Mystic Remora. So opponent gets to draw an extra card at the end step with Fevered Visions, and that'll bring it to Teysa Karlov's turn, and they'll get some Nekusar triggers. Blood Art is coming in. Ugh. Black Market coming down. Please don't follow it up with the board wipe. Bunch of triggers firing off. Nekusar, Crypt Ghast. Opponent doesn't have a sack outlay. They do have one. They have a high market, so they can sacrifice 1 creature. Better than the infinite free sack outlets, though. Ew, that's a Worm Coil Engine. Yep. Archon going to swing into the Nekusar. Midnight Reaper into the Lavinia. Teysa into the Lavinia. So Nekusar down to 25. Lavinia down to 22, and Fever Visions will trigger on the Teysa. That's going to put them to 35. Cumulative upkeep trigger on the Mr. Cremora. Lavinia's turn. Lets it go. Cool. Nekusar is going to trigger a couple times. Here comes a Windfall. Ugh. And it's a Teferi's protection, so he doesn't hurt himself. All right. So we're going to lose our Pathbreaker Ibex. That does make me sad. Oh. So opponent's going to sacrifice their Archon of Justice. Let's see what they're shooting. Hopefully it's Fevered Visions and Nekusar. They'll get to draw some cards with the Midnight Reaper. So a bunch of things triggering right here. A couple Black Market triggers, a couple Blood Artist triggers, a couple Midnight Reaper triggers, High Market, Teferi's, and Windfall on the stack. The Archon is going to shoot the Nekusar. And let's find out what the second target is. Going to go after our Urza's Incubator. Hurts a little bit, but there are worse things. Sylvan Library, probably the stronger of the two, because that's what's going to draw us out of this if should things go wrong. We will get a fresh 7, though. Hopefully, because this has been happening a lot, I wheel and then I get cards back from my original hand. Hopefully this Pathbreaker Ibex comes back to us. What do we get? We get a Symbiotic Worm. We get a Beast Within. Ooh, we get a Triumph of the Hordes. And a Garruk Primal Hunter, plus a Genesis Wave. Lavinia gets to draw an extra card with the Fever Visions, but takes no damage. It doesn't really make sense to Garruk with Nekusar and Lavinia in the game, with all the wheels that both of them play. If we went up to like 15 cards, even though we have the Reliquary Tower, they'd probably just wheel, and then we would not have 15 cards. So we're going to wait a little bit on that. Thinking this turn is just going to be the Genesis Wave. Wouldn't mind finding a Heroic Intervention off the top, so just so that we could protect our position a little bit. There's a Greater Good. That's a card. Take a look with the Sylvan Library. We've got a Bellowing Tangleworm. Ooh. And a 3 visits. So 3 visits we definitely don't need. Put that on top. Greater Good, I feel like we can live without. Put that back on top. So the Bellowing Tangleworm gives Intimidate to all of our creatures, which means we could just like blast the Teysa Karlov opponent. So let's play a Forest. I think we just Genesis Wave for the max. Actually, Genesis Wave's only going to be what? So we have 8 mana, 6, 7, 8, 9. It'll be for 6. Opponent does have 1 white mana open, which could be a Swords of Plowshares. That would be troublesome. Not entirely sure what to do right here. This thing is 8 to get down. That should make it 6 after the cost reduction. Yeah, I guess we're going for the Genesis Wave. So we get a Greater Good, and looks like a bunch of forests. We skip past a 3 visits and a Harmonize. We have card draw. Not too worried about those. So we get 3 fresh lands. We can get the Bellowing Tangleworm down. Unfortunately, the Wormcoil Engine can block, which is a little bit annoying. And they'll get a bunch of death-touching tokens. We're going to haste the Bellowing Tangleworm. I want to leave some blockers up. So we'll leave the Frog Lizard back to eat the Wormcoil Engine. Seems like a pretty good idea. Bellowing Tangleworm can swing into the Nekusar. That can swing into the Nekusar. That can swing into the Nekusar. And I'm actually going to leave the Yamvaya Worm back, because I'm not too... Like, if we need to block and lose something, I'm not too worried about losing that one, so... And Goreclaw will trigger. We get +1/+1 and trample to each of our creatures. So we put Nekusar down to 7, and the reason I wanted to do that is because then it should force the Teysa player to attack into the Nekusar, so at least some of their stuff will be tapped. Also, it saves them from attacking us with like every single thing that they have. Something big out of the Nekusar. See what's gonna be. Okay, so recasting Nekusar. All right, and an opponent's gonna Dark Deal. All right, we're losing yet more of our really good stuff. Nekusar will trigger many times. There's a Heroic Intervention we were looking for. No open mana for it though. We get a Craw Worm. We get Nature's Lore, Crush of Worms, Thought Vessel, and a Forest. We go down to 13. It's pretty low. It's pretty low. There's an Anvil of Bogardan. And there's going to be a Path to Exile on our Bellowing Tangleworm. Wow. Opponent wants no part of the Bellowing Tangleworm. So Nekusar gets 1 extra card with the Fever Visions, and it's going to bring it back to the Teysa's turn. Yeah, that's why I didn't try to Alpha Strike into them with the with all of our stuff last turn, because I thought they might have a Swords or a Path up. And then our attack wouldn't be nearly as effective. So in hindsight, though, I probably should have used the Greater Good
Although, lands are good. Lands are good for this deck, especially with Crush of Worms now in our hand. Black Market adding 2 extra mana, so opponent's got some mana. Opponent's going to Demonic Tutor. That can't be good. Oh, Nekusar said they should have Time Spiraled first. Yeah, they definitely should have. Teysa tapping up for a lot of mana. This could be a problem. Big X spell, maybe? Yep, that's a Torment of Hailfire. X15. Oh, boy. Ooh. Sacrifice the Greater Good. Discard the Nature's Lore. Goreclaw Wurm. Crush of Worms. Thought Vessel. Forest. We can recast Goreclaw. Oh, man. We're on 8 of 15. Ooh. What's 7 times 3? 21? Yep. It's gonna be rough. Gonna be rough. The token. Black Market. Blood Artist triggers. Uh-oh. Guess we're losing the Heroic Intervention. 10 of 15, that's 5. Yep, still gotta sacrifice a few more. Guess it's gonna be the Surrak. Oh, we're dead, because now opponent can just attack in. 4 would be 12. Yep. So we go to 0. Bummer. Oh, man, the wheels. Like, we had the things we wanted in our hand. We just didn't have time to set it all up. Oh, that was frustrating. The Pathbreaker Ibex, we just needed to get back to that. The Triumph of the Hordes that got wheeled away multiple times. Yeah. Because Dave has Hexproof, opponent has to target themselves with the Blood Artist. Nice. That should just even itself out, though. So Dave's going to need a Board Wipe or a Cyclonic Rift right here. I saw him running Whelming Wave earlier when some stuff, like... So if he's got some of the mass bounce, that would be the most ideal against this board state. Something like a Supreme Verdict is still going to make a bunch of Worm Coil tokens, and that's kind of a problem, plus the Blood Artist triggers. Ilee Eternal Pilgrim coming into play, sure. So Lavinia's going to need some tricks right here. So Dave lays down Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale and a Stasis. Oh. So Teysa can have fun with that. Gonna crack the Expedition map, and they don't have that much mana to pay for stuff. Reveals an island with the Expedition map. That actually seems like a poor exchange right there with the Stasis. So opponent gets a bunch of Tabernacle triggers. If it were me, the ones you probably want to keep are the Blood Artist, maybe Teysa, and Cryptghast. Opponent's getting some triggers. Ooh, they still have Black Market with 10 counters on it? Oh, yeah. So they can still do a lot. Stasis isn't exactly going to just completely lock them down. Maybe you keep Worm Coil and just swing away with it. So opponent lets the Midnight Reaper go, keeps the other 4. Can trigger the Blood Artist a couple times. Yep, it's a pretty big game right there. Blood Artist might be MVP. Because even if they just let everything die next turn, that's what, 8 triggers? Is it another creature? No, it or another creature, yeah. So they got 8 triggers right there. So turn everything sideways right here and then let everything die next turn. Seems pretty good. Land for our opponent. That's a pretty big play right there. And they get 12 mana off the Black Market. Yeah, as long as they don't need white, they can still do quite a bit. Signet coming down, so now they'll have some white mana. It's going to trigger the Cryptghast, too. If they start extorting, they'll be able to get that last 16 life really quickly. Felwar Stone coming down. Oh, opponent didn't extort. I would totally... Unless they've got something really big in hand, I would totally extort right there. Anointed Procession. Okay. Ashnod's Altar coming down. There's the sack outlet. Ooh, with Anointed Procession? And a Zulaport Cutthroat. Okay. I see what's going on. So opponent sending in the Worm Coil engine. I'd send in Teysa also. Yep, there they go. You know what? Honestly, I'd probably even send in the Cryptghast because they're probably going to have to block the Worm Coil engine, so I don't think there's any real chance that the Cryptghast is getting blocked. So Lavinia down to 14 and Teysa up to 34. So go back to Lavinia's turn. Stasis trigger. They need to pay a blue. Pays for the blue. Not entirely sure that there's a way out of this. A lot of stuff happening right here. Gonna ponder. At the end step, they're gonna start sacking stuff to the into the Ashnod's Altar. What I would have done is wait for the upkeep trigger to come back, sacrifice a creature, so that way you can use the mana to pay into the Tabernacle, just in case something happens. But opponent did just get a million tokens. Looks like 8 tokens. Okay, yeah. They can probably just win from here, but the even more conservative route would have been to wait to get the mana from Ashnod's Altar. And yep, Lavinia scoops it up. So Teysa Karlov taking down the match. Had a Harvester of Souls and a Swords of Plowshares in hand. Yeah, all good stuff. they had it. The life gain pretty big right there because as Nekusar and everyone's trying to do damage, they're gaining that life back. And they had just enough things out that we couldn't really swing into them profitably and like survive the crackback. So that kept me from going in there. Our deck is a bit more casual. It probably needs a little bit more removal to be able to deal with stuff like that. We do have a lone Ugin as sort of our solution to problems like that. But yeah, on the other hand, we weren't that far away either. We lost the Triumph of the Hordes, I think, twice. We had the Pathbreaker Ibex, which was ready to swing in. We were going to be able to haste it, give +6/+6 to our creatures. That's pretty big game. So we were just a turn behind where we needed to be to really get in for the big damage right there. Anyway, that's another look at Goreclaw Wurm Tribal. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.